and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. And in today's packed program, I'm going to be looking at, as per the title of this video, the next Bitcoin move that's going to shock the majority of people out there, but not the Wisdom Bites community here. And it will be at exactly this price with a high degree of probability. I'm going to have a look at the EMA ribbons as I showed you a couple of weeks ago, and it seems like, as per the previous historical cycles, it looks like we're going to be finding our support at these levels that I'm going to show you. I'm also going to be looking at the settings on the Fibonacci retracement. Quite a few questions have come in regarding the settings that I've got, because it may be different to your settings, and I'll show you exactly why the difference is there. And as per usual, we'll have a look at the 60-day cycle to tell us exactly what's happening within the confinements and the parameters of the 60-day cycle in terms of what we can expect over the next few days and weeks. So if that sounds interesting, then without further ado, get yourself a cup of tea, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, and let's get cracking. But before I begin, the usual polite reminder, please remember everything in my videos is just for educational purposes, so please always do your wider research before you make any investment decisions or any swing trade decisions. So what is going to be this next Bitcoin move that's going to shock the world out there? As I've been talking about in my last many videos, as the price has been coming up for Bitcoin to these two levels here, and these are the two levels I've been talking about since the beginning of this year. So it's 11 months I've been talking about these two levels when the price was down here at 15,000. We called the bottom here, and we called this the second bottom. And in the long-term portfolio, this is what we've been riding all the way from this point and this point. If you've been watching my videos, you'll know that 75% of my holdings entered here and 25% were entered over here. So we've been riding this all the way up to this point, not in Bitcoin, but the Bitcoin miners. But this is where it gets really interesting, because since this point here, these are the two lines I've marked out, and they're based on these two lines here. The yellow line, which is the RSI MTF, and I know many people always ask about the settings. I'm not sure whether you're able to get this on the free trading view, but these are my settings on the inputs and on the style, and this exact price at the moment is coming to about 41,000. But as this rises, this will come down, because as the price goes up, the RSI MTF comes down. It has an inverse relationship most of the time, not all of the time. So I would be expecting this to be at about 40,000. So this is where the exact price for the Bitcoin pullback is going to come initially. And then we have the second target, which is based on the pi cycle. Once again, from this bottom here, I've been showing you the pi cycle, where historically in each of the previous cycles before the halving, the prices come up to the pi cycle and got rejected at that point with a major pullback. And that line at the moment, the red line here, is currently at 52,000. Now, always remember, it doesn't always have to come and exactly hit the line. This is a good reference point, because what you have to do is find confluence with other tools that we have here. And one of them is obviously the support and resistance, because if you look left, there's a huge amount of resistance and support at 46 to 48. There's the resistance here, lots of support, lots of resistance, lots of support. So it's quite clear this is a very strong support and resistance line. So with a high degree of probability, it may well be that it comes up after this pullback that we get at the RSI MTF line at 40,000. It looks to me as though the next move up is going to be the 46 to 48, and then it will depend on where this pi cycle is. If this is at 52,000, because if you look left again, there's a very strong resistance at the 52 as well. So if we mark that up there, you can see there's a lot of support here, resistance and resistance here at the 50 to 52,000. And this is exactly where the high cycle is at the moment. But when it comes back up here, the price, a little bit later on, like I say, this is a rising market at the moment, but this pullback could bring this price down a little bit. And as this goes up, this will go back up again. And we really don't know where it's going to be, but it's going to be in this region here. So the first target is 40,000, and the next target is anywhere between 48 to 52,000. Now, quite a few people have been asking about the levels on the Fibonacci retracement, because these two levels correspond to the Fibonacci retracement that we've been actually looking at of the last many videos. So let me give you the Fibonacci retracement settings that I've got. Okay, so if we take the Fibonacci retracement from the top here at 69,000 down to the 15,400, you'll see that my Fibonacci retracement comes to the 61.8 over here at exactly this box corresponding to this golden pocket level at 61.8, and then the next level comes up to the 78.6 level here. Now if I show you my settings, you'll see that under style, if you go to the bottom of there, it's got this box ticked here called the Fibonacci levels based on the log scale. So my Fibonacci retracement is set on the log scale. But if you untick this, you'll see that the levels are slightly different. So with the Fibonacci without the log scale, the 61.8 is where the 78.6 was, which is still around there, 48,000, and the 78.6 Fibonacci is at 57,500. This has a high degree of probability for playing out around the 48,000 because that's what's happened in the past, as I've shown you with the previous cycles. So depending on whatever settings you want to go for, I would keep it to the log scale, but it's your choice at the end of the day. The main takeaway here are these two lines, the RSI MTF at 40,000 and the Pi cycle at 52,000 currently, but we don't know where that's going to be as the price rises here. Some people sometimes ask, is that definite it's going to happen? Well, nothing is definite. This is not about guarantees or certainties. We're only going by the historical perspective, which I've been showing you for the last 11 months, that the price has a high degree of probability before the halving coming up to the RSI MTF line and or the Pi cycle. And these are where these two are. So with a high degree of probability, we can say that if the price follows the previous historical context and the previous historical record of what's happened in the past, then these are the two lines where the price is going to come up to before a pullback here and a pullback here. Now, only last week I showed you this EMA ribbons, which have been playing out from the first cycle. It's something that we must keep in mind. It's very easy to forget these very strong and very predictable indicators. I don't really want to go through old ground over and over again, but please remember that in the last three cycles, i.e. the last three halvings, before we got to the halving, many months before, we broke out of the EMA ribbons here on the weekly chart. And when we broke out, having come down in the bear market, got above the EMA ribbons, and then once we finally broke out of there, about 5 or 6 or 7 months before the halving, this red line here, then the price in the previous three cycles has never come back below the breakout of these candles. So at that point, we're at $28,000. So this is very high degree of probability play that when the price does actually have a pullback anywhere here, it's very unlikely to come below this 28,000. Even if we have the pullback here, the major pullback is going to be probably with a higher degree of probability at this point, around the 50,000. Could be 48, could be 52. There are 2 points of support here. The EMA ribbons at 28,000 and this orange line I showed you last week, extremely important because when you zoom out, you'll see that this is an incredible support line. And in each of the previous three cycles, whenever the prices come back down, it has never breached this orange line with a close below it. So you can see in the first cycle, we got this orange line, and after the halving, it never came back and breached this orange support line. Second cycle, exactly the same. Third cycle, exactly the same. After the halving, it never breached it at all. This was the COVID situation, which you have to ignore. And then you've got the current cycle here, and that is basically this rising support line here. And with the EMA ribbons I've just shown you at 28,000, this forms an incredible support. So unless something drastic happens, we're going to find a lot of support on this orange line. So a general analysis of the candlestick formations that are forming here with this price action, what we've really got on the weekly chart is looking really bullish. We've got one very solid candle here, followed by an even bigger solid candle. There was a little bit of a pause on the next candle with a smaller body, but last week we've gone back into the bullish mode one more time because the body of this candle here is once again much greater than the previous body of the candle. So that's telling us that there's a lot of rising demand that came in last week. So I would expect with a high degree of probability, just based on these candlestick formations, that this current week we should breach up to the 40,000. And if we have a look at the daily chart, I haven't shown you this for a while, the Bollinger Bands. What we've really got is the price moving the Bollinger Bands to the upside, then finding consolidation, and then we're moving back up again. Instead of coming back down, which would be a bearish move, we're trying to make more further gains on the upside here. And at the same time, this blue line is the 8 EMA. I haven't shown you this for a while, but look what's happening. Ever since we got above the 8 EMA here, back in the middle of October, we found support on the 8 EMA continuously all the way along. and you can see it's rising on the 80 MA. And now one more time, and this support at the moment is at 36.5. So we could easily come back to the 36.5 and still be bullish to push this Bollinger Band up towards this 40,000 target. So everything seems to be coming together at those levels. And I did show you one word of caution in last week's video, and that was that we were making a bearish divergence on the daily chart here. So we made a lower high on the RSI and a higher high on the price. That doesn't mean that it can't go much higher. Of course, if it pushes up to the 40,000, this will push up the RSI as well. And if we get above that, then that will invalidate this divergence. So we'll see how that plays, but it's just a word of caution that it could top out obviously at this level simply because there is a divergence there. And if we have a look at the volume, you can see that this consolidation is occurring on low volume here, and this increase was on quite a lot of high volume. So the bulls are really firmly in control at this point. Moving on to the 60-day cycle, we're currently on 32 days. So this is the 32nd day of the 60-day cycle. What I would have expected, having risen up along the way into the mid-cycle, we would have expected a fall into the mid-cycle low before we made another higher high for a right translated cycle, anywhere up to here even maybe, and then a fall into the 60-day cycle low for the beginning of the next cycle. But what's happening is that we're consolidating at the midpoint here. And having seen this big bullish move, that is normally characteristic of a right translated cycle to come. So I would expect, just based on what I know about the 60-day cycles, is that when you get a big move to the upside like this into the mid-cycle point, then there is a much higher degree of probability chance to make another higher high for a right translated cycle before this move down into the 60-day cycle low. I would find support here more likely at around about the 37 if this went up to the 40 first. So this would be the pullback that you would expect from 40 down to about 37. If it does break there, then it would probably come back down to possibly 32,000. But we can analyze that nearer the time. And this rising demand you can see here is mostly to do with the supply that I've been showing you over the last many videos. So while demand is increasing with the advent of the Bitcoin ETFs that we're all expecting, and that can happen this week because of that 8-day period that we're in now, where the SEC can approve all of the 12 or 13 applicants that are there. So this rising demand tells you that every time there is a pullback, there are desperate people wanting to get on board. And once we got above this level here at 31.8, i.e. 32,000, what it's really done is that people who always thought that the price is going to come back down to much lower levels, all the way down to 15, 12 and 7 and etc., more and more of them have now become convinced that this is a point that was a point of no return to those lower levels. So most of those people have converted from being bears to bulls here, and many of them are on the sidelines waiting for pullbacks just to buy these up. So some of the people who are buying these are those people who've converted from being permanent bears to the new bulls. You may have noticed that quite a few of the altcoins have actually started to move up. And while I don't cover the altcoins, I know that many of my subscribers have got themselves into some of the positions with the various altcoins. And there's just one that I want to look at because I don't know why, but everybody seems to be jumping into this particular asset. And I just want to give you a word of caution. At the end of the day, you have to do what you have to do. You have to make up your own mind based on your own wider research. And a few people have asked me to cover this one, and I really don't want to be covering any altcoin. My focus is on the Bitcoin miners because I think there's an amazing opportunity with the Bitcoin miners which people are missing out on. And I'll go into that a little bit later. But let me just show you a chart for Solana. It's had a massive run, as you can see from down here, around about $16 to the current price of $58. And so many people are just FOMOing in, thinking that this is just going to continue to the upside. And just to add value to my subscribers, I'm just going to have a quick look at it and give you a word of caution, because on the weekly chart, you can see it's come up to a resistance point, which is the support and resistance here. Not really a lot, only a little bit, but it seems to have come up to this point. And I just want to show you why it's actually started to stall here, and why you should be a bit careful. At the end of the day, it's your money. You can do whatever you want with it. But if I put the RSI MTF line on here, look where it's come to. Solana has come right on the RSI MTF line. So this is the first point of caution. And the second point of caution is on the daily chart. As soon as I see something like this, a gravestone doji candle at the top of a very strong trend line here, that's telling me that the market wants to move back down. So here, while the price currently can go back up to retest the high here at around about 63, I would expect a rejection anywhere below here, from anywhere where it is now all the way back to at least the $45, $46 mark. So if I was looking at this, and I'm not, I have zero interest in altcoins, but if I was looking at this, I'd be waiting for a pullback down to these levels around 45, which is the support and resistance of these points here. And on the left as well, as you can see there. So all I would say is just be careful. What I would be looking for, if I get a 4-hour candle closing above this 63, then that means that it's more likely to go back up again. But I would wait for confirmation of a second candle just in case. A second candle of the 4-hour chart. Because what can happen is fade above this point here, suck everybody in at this point, and then go down to a slide down to the support level. I talked a little bit about the Bitcoin miners and why I've got into the Bitcoin miners and the current prices in the Bitcoin miners, which have lagged behind Bitcoin. And one of the reasons why the price for the Bitcoin miners has actually lagged behind it. So in this article, it's basically talking about why a Bitcoin ETF is making the Bitcoin miners nervous. A lot of people worried that when the Bitcoin ETFs come, they will suck the capital out of Bitcoin miners. And of course, anything can happen. Nobody can say with guarantees. And there will be some people who are in the Bitcoin miners who will be attracted to that, but not all of them. And my argument is that the majority of the people who are going to go into the Bitcoin ETFs are new people who already have portfolios with those companies that are having the applications to turn them into a Bitcoin ETF. Companies like BlackRock, so they will have portfolios with their clients and they will now have the added option of offering a Bitcoin ETF to their clients. And those people are not the ones who are already invested in Bitcoin miners. And yes, some of the investors who are with Bitcoin miners may want to invest further into the Bitcoin ETFs, but the fact that new people are coming into this space means that they will be aware of the Bitcoin miners and the leverage play that they offer. So for me, it opens up the market for the Bitcoin miners from that new group of investors. And the reason why I say that is that back in 2020, I made a video on the Bitcoin miners. That was the first time I got into the Bitcoin miners, and I did a video to try and bring that opportunity to people. And at that time, I did an analysis on Marathon Digital Holdings. At that time, it was called Marathon Patent Group. And it was a video that was saying that the Marathon price was about to break out towards the $40 mark from where we were at that time, around the $5.40 level. So here is a clip of that. It's only 1 minute, so please look at this and have a look at exactly where we were in 2020 and then compare that. After the video, I'm going to show you the Marathon Digital Holdings that we are currently not too far off from that price. And the next 2 years should prove very fruitful for the Bitcoin miners. Marathon Patent Group, which went into the Bitcoin mining, and as you can see at the top of its market was around the December 2017, similar to Bitcoin. It came down similar to Bitcoin and is doing similar things to Bitcoin now. And we're just breaking this corresponding line of the 10,500 with Bitcoin. We're just breaking that now and using that as support. If we just zoom in on here, you can see that we went above it, quickly got moved back down, but the bullish pressure pushed it back up there, and now we're coming back down to retest it here. And then it looks to me as though we're going to be off to the races very, very shortly. Towards the all-time high was $38.59 around here, $38.50. We're currently at $5.40, and it looks to me as though this chart is looking extremely bullish, and we're on our way towards the $40 mark here. Only time will tell. This is all probabilities. This is not financial advice. You have to do your own wider research, but this is what I'm looking at currently. So this is where we were when I made that video on the 6th of December in 2020. So as you can see, at this point, if you draw the line there, you could see that there was an inverse head and shoulders at that point, and we were about to break out, and this is what I was bringing to people's attention to. But instead of going to $40 at this point here, which is what I showed you in the video, it actually went all the way up to $83. And now if you look at where we are, we're currently at about $9.50. And in the Bitcoin Miners Club, I've given all of them these levels here, which are the levels at which the price for the miners will reach as we're going into the 2 years to the end of the bull market. And if that opportunity for the Bitcoin miners is something that appeals to you, then we do have a member section here at Wisdom Bites, which covers solely the Bitcoin miners in terms of the undervalued companies as we go along in this journey for the 2 years, as well as doing swing trades along the way. And I do show you those swing trades and the current state of play on the swing trades that we started on the 18th of October is that on 3 of them, we managed to make 7.5%, 33%, and a minus 5%. We still have one Bitcoin miner that we have a live trade that's going on at the moment, and that's up about 7 or 8% so far, with a lot more to go yet. And if that's the kind of opportunity you're interested in, always remember the Bitcoin miners are a leverage play on the Bitcoin price. So in the last cycle, when Bitcoin went up by 5 or 6 times, the Bitcoin miners went up by 12, 13, and 14 times. Not all of them, some of them. And obviously with the higher opportunity and the higher reward come the higher risks as well. And if you want to join us with that opportunity, all you have to do is to click the join button here, and for the price of 1 coffee per week, you'll have access to all the videos that we've done so far and the current state of play with the swing trades. Before we finish, I just want to do a little bit of personal development. I thought if I get some time, I'll try and cover this for you. I've had quite a number of requests to cover a little bit of personal development. And as you know, this is my favorite subject outside of the crypto space. And I've been showing you this wheel of life because this is one of the greatest tools for personal development that has ever been invented. So for those people who want to improve themselves and develop their skills and make themselves successful on many different areas, as you know, there are 9 main areas of life that this wheel of life covers. From careers, finance, personal growth, health and fitness, family, relationships, social life, attitude, etc. And as I showed you before, what you do is you actually work on each of those areas on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And as you can see from the middle of the wheel, you have the numbers here from 1 to 10. So wherever you are on that scale, of where you are and where you want to get to. Let's say on the personal growth, you're at level 7 here. So you're obviously doing really well on that side by acquiring more skills, more knowledge, more attributes, developing your personality, developing your character, improving your decision making, etc., etc. So on the personal growth side, you sit yourself down and ask, what can I do to make the 7 into an 8? And you do that for all of the other areas. And 2 of the main areas that I've actually covered for you by showing you some videos, that without those 2 areas, this wheel of life doesn't work as efficiently. And that is by using the 4 Ds. I showed you with the Brian Tracy video, these were the 4 Ds that he goes through, that when you operate this wheel of life, use the 4 Ds to achieve the aims and objectives and targets and your dreams and goals with those 4 Ds, i.e. have firstly the desire, then make the decision to go for it, and then have the determination and the discipline to carry it through. And I also showed you with the Brian Tracy video that one of the main aspects of achieving the greatest success that you can with all of these is to clear your mind of any grievances, any bad feelings, any negative energy towards other people. Because if you don't do that, they become the roadblocks from preventing you from achieving the things that you want to, i.e. from getting from where you are to where you want to get to. And this particular video is one of the greatest videos I have ever watched in my life, and it's called How to Let Go, the 4 people you must forgive. It may sound a very touchy subject because I know that about 95% of people, and I'm talking about people who I know over the last 30, 40 years, very few people, for some reason I've never understood, do not want to forgive. They do not want to let go. They want to hold on to their grievances, their negative energy, etc. But the only person you're affecting is not the person you have the grievance with, but you're engaging in self-harm. The only person you're harming is yourself. So do yourself a favor and let go of all the bad feeling and the grievances and the bitterness and anger towards other people. Just let go. So with that in mind, I want to show you today one of the greatest things that I discovered in the personal development field. And that is something I've talked about over the last 2 or 3 years with you here. I just want to refresh your mind on this, because if you really want to be successful in the financial field, and this is how it relates to Bitcoin, because we're all here wanting to make money with Bitcoin and the Bitcoin miners. But one tool you must use is the principle of the richest man in Babylon. And if you read the book, you'll find there are 7 main lessons from the richest man in Babylon in terms of building wealth like a millionaire. And I just want to take a few minutes of your time just to go through it, because this could be the greatest few minutes you spend if you want to become wealthy. If you scroll down, These are the summary of the 7 lessons. The first one is you pay yourself first. And what does that mean? Well, what it really means is, if you look at this, and I'm going to go into this a little bit detail now, these are the 2 things that you can do with the money that you get in terms of your income. So what it says here, I just want to go through this. Very, very important. So please take notes of this. And if you want to make another cup of tea, go and make yourself a cup of tea, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen on this one, and make some notes. And that is, what does it mean to pay yourself first? And there are 2 ways to look at the savings. Mathematically, they're identical, i.e., number 1 is savings will equal your income minus your expenses. The second one is your expenses, which is the same thing as income minus the savings. And so what it says here is that, so what this really says is that these 2 statements are equal. However, the psychology behind them are vastly different. And this psychology is what really sets people who are successful to those who are unsuccessful because of the way they look at this statement. Exactly the same, but it's the psychology which is different. And he goes on to say, if you follow the first equation, you are saving whatever is left over after you pay your expenses. And you are following the path of the average American or most people around the world, where almost 80% of people live paycheck to paycheck. And unless you have an unusual amount of willpower, it is difficult to spend less than you earn if you don't specifically prioritize savings as a line item in your budget. And the second equation is a subtle but significant mindset shift. You are making a conscious decision to pay yourself first. This is the principle, to save a certain percentage of your income before you budget for your monthly expenses. So instead of saving what is left over, you are spending what is left over. So let me just go into this detail. It may be a bit confusing, but let me show it you in very, very simple terms. So this is you here. This is the income you're getting, if you put that as I. And what it's really saying is that when you get this income, wherever it is, if you get a lot of incomes, then obviously put that as your total income. Before you actually delve into spending anything at all, you pay yourself first. And I know back in 1989, when I joined the pharmaceutical industry, I wanted to do something that nobody in my family had done or any of my friends had done. And that is to actually buy a house without mortgage. Everybody I knew for many, many years, 10, 15, 20 years prior to that, everybody had a mortgage. My family had a mortgage. My friends had a mortgage. The colleagues I came across in work, they all had a mortgage. And I thought to myself, when I came across this particular principle, you could use this principle of the richest man in Babylon by actually buying a house for cash. And this is how I did it, because I've never had a mortgage. My first house was bought by cash, just using this little principle. So what I did, and this is what this principle is telling you, is that when you get this income, what I did was to actually put away 50%. Now, that might be too much for most people. Because I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't womanize. I have a very simple, basic life that I lead. And this is why I'm probably the most happiest man you'll ever meet in your life. But 50% of my income I used to save with a view to buying a house. So when I got this income, I took 50% out. Now, for most people, it could be 5%, 10%, whatever it is, pay yourself first. That's the principle. And then with whatever you've got left over here, that 50% for me, I used to then budget for everything. So with the 50%, this is what you take out in terms of your expenses now. So you do your food and all your normal provisions, etc., and use this 50% to do that. But you pay yourself first. So you always save that amount of money, 5, 10, 15, 20, 50%, whatever it's going to be. And the reason why it works incredibly well is that when you do this, because we are creatures of habit, we will get used to spending only this amount of money. So the reverse of that is that if you don't save this amount of money first, and you actually delve into your expenses on this side first, and then whatever is left over, you do the savings, the chances are you'll end up overspending over here. So instead of having 50% left over, you'll actually might only have 1%, 5%, 6%, much less than otherwise would be the case. That's the mindset shift here. So I can tell you that this one particular lesson, pay yourself first, allowed me to actually create a huge amount of wealth with that first house that I bought just only a few years after that I actually put this principle into effect. Pay yourself first. And then use the rest of it to pay your bills and your provisions and everything else. And the second principle here is to live within your means. That is, don't spend money that you don't have in your pocket. The third principle is Put your money to work. That's what we're here for. We're putting our money to work in Bitcoin, the Bitcoin miners. And if you're doing it with altcoins, then that's fine for you. And the fourth principle here is to keep your money safe. What does that mean? It means don't waste your money. It's always better to delay gratification so that when you do have the money, you then have the ability to be able to spend it. So don't spend money that you don't actually have. The next one is be a homeowner. Now, a lot of people don't like this particular one because they don't think they've got the ability or the dedication or commitment to actually buy a house for cash. That's fine. So they will go and get a mortgage. But with the mortgage, you have to pay interest payments. And this is why it's saying here, be a homeowner, i.e. pay off your mortgage. Instead of using the money for non-essential items, pay the money off for your mortgage so over time you end up paying off the mortgage. But if you put this first principle in effect, you wouldn't need a mortgage down here. And the sixth principle is ensure your future income. This is basically saying you should have life insurance and other things so that if anything untoward happens, then you can actually protect yourself. And the final one is the seventh one, saying improve your skills to earn more income. So acquire more skills, more experiences, more attributes, develop your character, develop your personality. This is all about the personal development. And I can tell you that with this particular one here, after I left the pharmaceutical industry in 2005, I continued with these principles of the richest man in Babylon by going into an area called the legal services, which I wasn't qualified for. My background is economics, but I set up a multi-million-pound business within the legal services area, which I'd never knew anything about. But spending a few weeks and months just learning about the legal services allowed me to build up that business. But altogether, I've had about 5 different careers. I started off my career in banking, went on to the pharmaceutical services, and as I was doing the legal services, I developed my property development business. And from there on, I've gone into the crypto space since 2018. So you can achieve anything you want. And I can tell you that I'm not the sharpest tool in the box. I honestly believe that the majority of people I've come across in my life, they're far more skillful, far more technically gifted, and far more smarter than I am. But one thing I've always got an advantage of over most people is this particular one here, is this particular area called attitude. You can't really become successful in these other areas like your career, your finance, your personal growth, unless you have the right attitude. This is the biggest area you really have to work on, creating a positive mental attitude. So what I'm going to do going forward, if I can, whenever I get time, I don't always get the time, but I'm going to cover each of these areas from a personal point of view so you can see that when you put it into practice, it really does work. So today I've covered the area of finance, that if you actually follow the richest man in Babylon, you can really build a lot of wealth. And this wheel of life isn't there just for educational purposes. It's actually put it into practice. And I've put into practice every single area over the last 30 years with absolutely amazing results. And like I say, the majority of people I've come across in my life, they're far more smarter than me. They have far more skills than I have. But what I have is that I've got a template which really gives me a little bit of an edge. And with the right attitude, you can really go far in life. So hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll try and cover another area of this from my own personal point of view. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there. I hope you found value in the video. And if you did, then please do remember to like and to subscribe and to turn on the notification bell. And if you've got any comments, questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.